It starts the way all great mysteries do, quietly without warning, slipping into our awareness like a whisper in the dark. No fanfare, no thunder in the sky, just a silent arrival from the deep unknown. Long before anyone gave it a name, before telescopes locked onto its trail, something ancient was already threading its way through the blackness between stars. Older than our sun, older than Earth, older than every story humanity has told about the sky. And then, almost by accident, we noticed. They called it 3I/ATLAS, but names feel too small for something like this. One moment, astronomers were scanning the heavens as they always do, chasing data and light. The next, a ghost from another star system had trespassed into our own. It didn't roar into our awareness, it simply appeared, a speck moving too oddly, too quickly to belong to us. It came in silence, cold and alone, as though it had spent billions of years drifting through darkness, remembering nothing of where it began. When the first whispers spread that we had another interstellar visitor, only the third one in human history, something shifted. Scientists who had watched the sky for decades felt the same tug a child feels when they see the ocean for the first time. Awe mixed with something like fear or reverence or both. Because this wasn't space dust or a wandering piece of ice. This was a message carried across time itself. A relic formed under another sun, in another cradle of creation, now passing through ours as if our entire solar system were just a hallway it had to cross. Everywhere, observatories scrambled, telescopes begged for time, and rival scientists found themselves united by the same pulse of curiosity. The old guard remembered Oumuamua, the strange shard that came and went like a rumor, followed by Borisov, whose icy tale trailed stories older than life on Earth. But this one was different, faster, older, more unpredictable, like a stranger with a scar you can't stop staring at, even though you don't know the story behind it. Reports came in rapid bursts, its speed, its path, its strange brightness, its behavior that didn't quite fit the rules we trusted. For some, it sparked excitement. For others, unease. Not the kind born of danger, but of the realization that we are not the center of anything. We are just lucky enough to be standing close when the universe decides to brush past. Teams pulled late nights, eyes red from glow-lit screens, hands wrapped around cold mugs of forgotten coffee. They dug into its light, its tail, the way it shed dust, the color of its coma. They argued, they wondered. They stayed quiet about the parts that unsettled them. How far had it traveled? How many stars had it passed before ours? And how many more would it drift by long after we're gone? Then came the images. Blurry at first. Just a hint of movement against a tapestry of ancient light. But even in those first frames, something felt off. It looked small and yet impossibly loud, like a spark in an empty cathedral. It was moving at a speed that made every number feel meaningless. 58 kilometers per second. Enough to cross oceans in a heartbeat. Enough to outrun every piece of lore we've written about comets in our own backyard. And that was only the beginning. Scientists leaned in. The world squinted upward. And somewhere in the quiet between all those breaths of disbelief, a darker, quieter question began to form. Not in headlines, not in papers, but in the space between thoughts. What story does this thing carry with it, and why now? Because things that drift alone for billions of years do not come close to suns by accident. And 3I/ATLAS wasn't just passing by, it was revealing itself. As the data sharpened and the imagery improved, the questions only multiplied. What first looked like an icy wanderer from another system began to show details that made seasoned astronomers stop mid-sentence. Its tail wasn't behaving the way a comet's should. The material it shed didn't match expectations, not in color, not in speed, not in structure. And its shape was wrong. Not spherical, not elongated in the way we've come to expect from comets carved by time. It was irregular, asymmetrical, fractured like something that had survived violence long before we ever saw it. Some scientists tried to calm the storm of fascination by calling it a primitive object, a shard of some long-forgotten world torn apart before the planets of our solar system were born. But the more they looked, the less ordinary it became. It was as if 3I/ATLAS had been forged somewhere harsher, somewhere more chaotic than the cradle that shaped our own celestial neighborhood. The deeper instruments peered into its spectral signature, the more unsettling the results became. Its chemistry didn't match the fingerprints of Borisov. It didn't echo the strange metallic glints of Oumuamua. It was something else, something the textbooks weren't ready for. Its dust shimmered with elements in strange ratios, whispering hints of places our star maps do not name. And in its wake, it left a trail that made some observatories go quiet for hours, running the same tests again and again as if the readings might correct themselves out of embarrassment. Then came the silence, not from the comet, but from those studying it. The kind of silence that doesn't come from lack of data, but from too much of it, from information that pushes at the edges of what we believe the universe is allowed to contain. Data was shared, then retracted. Reports began, then stalled. In private messages and encrypted channels, astronomers spoke not with certainty, but with the hushed tone of people who have seen something they don't yet know how to name. And that's when the rumors began. Not in newspapers, not on screens, but in the quiet exchanges between people who spend their lives mapping the sky and still feel small doing it. Someone suggested its structure wasn't entirely natural, that it might be the remnant of something built, not born. Others dismissed that as desperation, as the same restless hunger that led people to believe every comet was an omen and every eclipse a warning. But even those who mocked the idea couldn't fully explain what the high-resolution scans revealed. The surface had angles where there should have been curves, shadows that hinted at cavities and fractures too clean to be carved only by time. And in one series of observations, a faint flicker, a blinking reflection that didn't sync with its rotation, ignited a new kind of unease. Still, the official story held steady. A fragment from another system, ancient and strange but natural. Yet behind the press releases and academic caution, others began framing a different kind of possibility. Not that it was artificial in the way science fiction imagines, not a ship or machine, but maybe a relic of catastrophic origin. A piece of a destroyed world. A splinter of a long-dead civilization's history, flung into eternity by forces we haven't yet named. Somewhere in the middle of all that confusion, a realization began to take shape. This wasn't just an object passing through, it was evidence. A reminder that creation is rarely quiet and survival is rarely gentle. Whatever birthed it might no longer exist. Whatever world it came from might be nothing but dust and memory now. And yet, here it was. Passing us like a funeral procession, no one knew they were witnessing. And still it drew closer. Its speed didn't slow. Its light grew sharper. Observatories refined their models, tracking its arc with the precision of obsession. Every update brought a tighter knot in the stomach. This thing wasn't looping around the sun. It wasn't skimming the edge of our system like an uninvited guest. It was slicing straight through, aimed at a trajectory that brought it dangerously near the planets we call home. Not close enough to strike, not close enough to burn, but close enough to show us its face. And in that growing nearness, something else began to change. Not in the comet, but in us. A tension. A pull. The sense that whatever secrets it carried were about to brush against our world like a match against old paper. And the universe does not send kindling without reason. The desert night had fully swallowed the horizon now, and the lights at the dig site glowed like a constellation pressed into the earth. The team gathered by the entrance of the passage, now breathing as if it were some living vein carved through time. The air that drifted from within wasn't just cold, it was ancient, carrying the scent of minerals and something almost metallic, as though time itself had a taste. Nora adjusted her gear and stepped forward, the flashlight strapped to her chest casting a trembling circle of light across the wall. Her fingers ran over the symbols again, slower this time, reverent. "These weren't meant for decoration," she whispered. "They're instructions. Or warnings." Dr. Farid followed her gaze, and though he tried to remain stoic, something in his expression betrayed a fear he hadn't allowed himself to voice. One of the inscriptions seemed to depict figures, humanoid, but elongated, stylized, standing around what looked like a device or an orb, with lines radiating outward like energy. Behind them, the only sound was the low mechanical hum of the drones, still drifting overhead, as if waiting for a command they didn't yet understand. The team descended further, step by step, the tunnel slowly widening until it led into a chamber. Vast, silent, and filled with pillars carved from the same impossible material. The walls shimmered faintly under the flashlight beams, reflecting light in ways stone shouldn't. Embedded in the surfaces were patterns, circles within circles arranged like celestial diagrams. Noor's breath caught. "These aren't just symbols," she said, "they're star maps." But not ours, not entirely. A hush settled over them as though the chamber itself had ears. In the center of the room lay something buried just beneath the layer of dust and sediment. A smooth, curved structure, partially revealed by the earlier drone scans. It was darker than the surrounding rock, almost metallic, with edges too precise to be shaped by hand. Hassan knelt beside it, brushing away the sand with careful strokes. The surface reflected his movements like polished obsidian, yet it bore no scratches, no signs of wear, as if it had been waiting untouched since before memory began. "No erosion," he said quietly. "No decay. This isn't something that was buried and forgotten. It was preserved." Dr. Farid slowly lowered himself beside it, his knees sinking into the sand. "This changes everything," he said. "If the dating is correct, then whoever made this existed long before the earliest civilizations we know, and they understood engineering in ways we still don't." But Noor shook her head gently. "What if it wasn't made here? What if it was brought here?" The thought seemed to ripple through the group, leaving each of them in silence. The drones, as if responding to an unseen cue, flickered and shifted, their sensors scanning the chamber like silent witnesses. A sudden vibration tremored through the ground, so subtle it might have been imagined, if not for the shifting dust at their feet. The walls around them seemed to hum, almost inaudibly, like something buried deeper still had stirred at their arrival. Noor stepped back, her heartbeat thundering in her ears. "This chamber isn't just a tomb," she said. "It's a vault. And that," she pointed to the curved structure, "might not be the only thing inside." Above them, the world remained unaware. The sands lay quiet, the stars turning slowly across the sky. But inside that silent chamber, surrounded by echoes of hands older than history, one truth pressed itself into every mind present. They had uncovered something humanity was never meant to forget, yet perhaps not yet ready to understand. And somewhere beyond that sealed silence, buried in darkness older than any temple or script, something waited. Not asleep, but listening.